Welcome to the diary of a self-taught brand designer turned studio owner. I'm Alyssa, founder of 18N Design, and I'm giving my best advice, hot takes, and real-time experiences. If you get someone's attention and they click on your profile, best case scenario is they like what they see and they're curious and they keep scrolling, or they follow you, or they click on the link in your bio and work with you or see what you have going on. And in order to do that, you need to give them a little sample of what they might get if they continue engaging with you, and that sample needs to be good. You ever get like a super fire sample at Costco and you're like, dang, I never would have bought this frozen box of fish sticks had I not been given this piping hot sample, but here I am at checkout with 45 fish sticks in my cart. That's kind of the vibe that we're trying to go for. If you're a fellow creative, stick around and follow my journey so we can grow together. All right, let's get into it. Okay, who else is so excited for the podcast to be back? I know you can't answer this because it is a one-person, one-way situation with podcasts. But I'm going to assume that we're all really excited because I definitely fell off from podcasts for a while. And that was like a mixture of reasons. I'm not going to take all of the fault for that. Partially because the place where I do all my work and where I would record the podcast is right next to a very busy street. And that's just NYC living for you. But another thing too is I kind of felt like I wasn't super inspired. There wasn't really anything that I really wanted to talk about. I also wasn't really sure about the advice that I was giving. And so I kind of wanted to take some time off to make sure that anything that I was going to say or sit and ruminate on is going to be something of value. And so now that we are back, you can probably assume now that I have lots of things to say and I'm feeling really excited and inspired for this season. So I have tons of ideas for the season that's coming up. So make sure to follow the podcast, subscribe, check out our Instagram because that's where all of the announcements are going to come. And let's get started with today's episode. We are talking about Instagram. Oh, Instagram. It is one of those things where it's like every time you think that you have it down, they just go and change it the day after. And you have to shift your strategy, shift your understanding, the way that you interact with it, and depend on it every single time that these changes happen. And the last time that I posted an Instagram strategy was years ago, many years ago. And not only does the app change from month to month, it really changes from week to week. So use this strategy episode with, a pinch of salt, just like my other one. But I tried to make my advice as universal as possible, something that wasn't going to be super stamped in time that will hopefully survive over the next few months and maybe a year from now. So I have 6 things for you that I want you to consider. If you're any type of person that is trying to sell your services and you're depending on Instagram to do that like myself, this is going to be for you. All right, number 1, consistency is important, but quality is even more important. So for the longest time, all of the Instagram coaches, the growth people, all the tips, we're saying that consistency is key, post every day, don't stop, and that's the only way you're going to grow and see numbers and reach new audiences and therefore get clients. While that is technically true, if you were to do that every single day, you probably would gain followers, right? It's not the best strategy, and I think that it's very unsustainable and you're going to burn out really quickly. So instead of focusing so much on consistency and really, really trying to run a tight ship with your schedule, what I think is more important with your attention is the quality of the content itself. If you need to scale back how often you post to a schedule that's more manageable for you, but the quality that you're maintaining every time you post and the value that your audience is getting every time you post is the same or is pretty high, then it doesn't really matter how often it is because that means every single time someone sees your post, they can expect a certain level of quality from you. And that means they're going to stop and they're going to look at it regardless of how often they see you. People are going to remember you for the value of your content. Versus if you're kind of just throwing everything at the wall and seeing what sticks, if someone's following you, they're really going to see that every single day and they might become desensitized to it. They might take the content for granted. And so you might have some really high quality content and some lower quality, but the client doesn't really know that, or your audience doesn't really know the difference at first glance. They're not going to take the time to look and read and watch every single thing you put out. So there might be a chance that your really high quality stuff is going to be buried underneath the low quality stuff. And so I think it's just worth your time to cut out all of the fat and really only put the best thing that you can offer out there. How I figure out if something is kind of high quality or low quality is I just think to myself, what is someone getting out of this? Is the 30-second reel or 10-second reel that I just posted worth somebody's time? And I have to think about it from a third-party view, does this person follow me already? Did they expect a certain level of something from me? And am I reaching that expectation? Or is this somebody that's completely new? This is their first impression of me, and I need to make a really good impression. I have to answer all those questions before I click post. What is the value of the content that I'm putting out? What do I want the end product to be. And so everything ideally that you're posting on your social media feed, specifically your Instagram, should have some sort of end goal in mind. It has a purpose. And this doesn't mean you can't post like casual, fun stuff. I do that all the time, but don't be fooled. All of that stuff has a purpose for me, and I'll dive into that a little bit later. So consistency is important, but quality is even more important. Okay, number 2, you need to show more, not just say more. So what I mean is the days of talking about your strengths, gassing yourself up in captions and, in titles on your reels is kind of over. I think people are kind of sick of hearing how great of a designer you are, hearing how great your copy is, and reading these testimonials over and over that are kind of repetitive. People want to see what you have to offer. They want to see what you're made of, and they want to make that decision for themselves. They want to kind of make an assumption about you through the work that you would ultimately be providing for them. So I think that the emphasis on portfolio work in your feed is higher than ever. I'm noticing that when I post a lot more portfolio work and product showcases on my Instagram, there is a higher amount of leads that I'm getting, higher amount of traffic and clicks that I'm getting on my website as well, versus when I'm just posting a lot of like salesy content, talking about my offer, but not really showing what that offer looks like in a transformation sense. So I think that right now, the moment in time that people are really interested in is less talk, more show. Just to double down on that too, I think that it's more than just posting your work onto your page and calling it a day. You need to be strategic about the work that you're posting as well. Try and figure out what are the strengths that I'm offering. What are the specific unique qualities of my design work? What is something that I get complimented on a lot? What are the points of each brand that I think are the strongest? And I'm going to highlight those and I'm going to push those. So for example, I think one of my strong suits with my brand identities for my clients tends to be the color palette and my typography. I always get a lot of compliments on my very elaborate color palettes and the pairings that I do. And then also I'm really good at mixed typography. And, we got to be self-congratulatory and we got to, know our strengths. And I think those are mine. So if I know that, all of my posts then whenever I share my projects on Instagram are going to include what? Typography suite and my color palette. And that's something that I make sure is included in almost every single project that I share. One, because it builds recognition and when people see a project of mine, they see the color palette post, they kind of remember me, they think of me. And also I'm showcasing my strengths. So if I come across a client or someone that's new that hasn't worked with me yet, and they're really looking for a brand that's like color dependent, they might be really drawn to me because they see how many color palettes are present on my page. They see that that's something that I take, seriously, I take into account, that I'm proud of. And so you have to show people what you're offering. It's like when there's like a menu at a restaurant, there's all these different things, all these dishes maybe you've never heard of, or they sound good, but you kind of want to see a picture. Including a picture is going to increase how often people order it. And that's just the truth. So that's really what number 2 is about. Show what you're made of, back up what you say and what your offers are talking about by actually showing the end result. All right, let's move on to number 3, and I'm going to get into some reels. I love reels. Reels are great. Reels are a huge part of how I grew in the last couple of years on Instagram. It's a huge part of my marketing and my launch strategy for any major push that I'm doing sales-wise. But you need to make sure that if you're using reels, that they are tailored to your audience and tailored to your skill set / comfort level. So, for example, I post both client-facing and creative-facing content because both are my audiences. I'm an educator. I sell a course. I have this podcast. I have templates. But I also am a designer that works with clients. So it makes sense for me to be posting a mixture of different reels. So I post things that a client would really like, talking about here's what's included in my packages. Here's my design process. And then I have reels that are funny and are relatable and talk about designer problems or tips for designers and tutorials. And that is appropriate for me because those are what my audiences would want. If you are trying to only book clients, like let's say you don't have any offers that relate or are profitable towards a creative-facing audience, then it doesn't really make a ton of sense for you to be taking up space on your profile to be connecting with those audiences when it's not really going to land you more clients. It can be great to post that once in a while, just, green community, and it can be fun to post, but you also have to consider what the algorithm is doing. Like let's say one of those funny designer-facing reels blows up. Well, now you're getting an influx of followers and a lot of engagement from other designers. And sometimes what Instagram will do, and algorithmically, if that's a word, it'll push you towards more of those people. So all of a sudden, the main people that your content is being shown to isn't like 70% clients and like 30% designers. It's starting to creep up. It's becoming 50-50. And all of a sudden, you're at 70% designers and 30% clients. And now it's really hard for you to reach more clients. It's really hard for you to reach people in your actual target audience. So all this is to say that make sure that when you're utilizing Reels, even if it's just for growth, sometimes gaining 100 followers of the wrong audience can be worse than gaining one follower of the right audience. So just think about that when you're planning like what types of reels you're doing. It can be really tempting to do what other designers are doing and do designer facing stuff because it gains them a lot of followers. But realistically, if that's not what you're going for, why fish there? You know what I'm saying? So that's the first aspect of reels I want you to think about. And the second is your skill set / comfort level. And I've talked about this before, I think in my other Instagram strategy episode from years back, but you need to make sure that you're not pushing yourself to do things that don't align with your personality. What I mean by that is, let's say you're somebody who hates talking on camera. You talk on camera, you feel awkward, you freeze up, it takes you forever to film. Why on earth would you put yourself through that? I think that it's important to create content that is not forcing you to do anything you don't want to do. That's the easiest way to stop doing it. It's the easiest way to become inconsistent and to form an unhealthy relationship with social media. The best way to maintain a positive and consistent rhythm with your content is to do stuff that you genuinely enjoy. So for you, that's trending audios or sounds with text over it and no talking. And that's great. Stick with that and make that something that you can continuously do and work on. If you actually hate reels and you just like to post your work, maybe you can post your work to audios and edit it in like a nice rhythmic way and don't even ever have to show your face. Or if you're someone like me and you just like love talking and you're just a chatterbox and the idea of a camera does not bother you at all because you grew up in your YouTube era, then do that. I think that your comfort level is directly correlated to how often you post and your relationship to it. So you want to make sure that your relationship to posting and to content creating is as low stress as possible. You don't feel obligated to do it. It feels like something that's fun, that you enjoy doing. And I know it's work, so it's not always going to be like, oh, I have free time, let me film a reel. And even beyond just like the relationship aspect of like how you feel about social media and how you feel about Instagram, it also comes down to like audiences. I feel like people are more perceptive than we give them credit for. I feel like it's really obvious when someone is like uncomfortable being on camera, or it's obvious when someone is just like churning out content to churn it out. You can also really tell when someone is like genuinely having fun making their content when it feels aligned to the personality that you've come to know. And so why put yourself in a position where you're putting all this effort and work and time into creating something that doesn't even really align with you don't enjoy it, and people don't really make the connection between you and that piece of content because it doesn't really make sense based off of what they know of you. When I put it that way, it kind of seems like a no-brainer, right? So that is something that I want you to consider when it comes to Reels. All right, number 4, repetition is key. So the Instagram algorithm just doesn't show our content as much as it used to, and that's a fact. You can look that up. Before, I feel like if you were following somebody and they posted it on their timeline or their feed, it used to be called a timeline because you would see it like based off of the time that they posted it. And so it was much easier for your content to be shown to all people who follow you. And it was much easier to get higher views, higher engagement on everything. Now, for some reason, it's being hidden from people who follow you and it's being shown to people who don't follow you. And it's a very confusing strategy that they put here. I don't really quite understand it. But the thing that you need to know is that it's different. What that means is that you have to repeat yourself a lot more than you used to. If you only talk about your offer once, then it's only the people who Instagram showed it to that one time got to see it. And so that means that maybe there's like all of these other potential clients and potential projects that people would be interested in taking the offer up on. That means that all these potential clients that do follow you or would have followed you if they saw the offer that one time aren't going to work with you because they weren't showing it to Instagram. And since you never talk about it again, they don't know about it. So you need to repeat your offers, repeat any sort of content or sales that you are trying to get out to your masses, because who knows what day that one of my followers is going to like see my stuff. You just never know anymore, like if people are even seeing what you're putting out. So you want to maximize the amount of people who follow you and the people who come across you that learn about your offers and are hearing the sales content that you're trying to push out. I hope I'm making sense with this point. It's more just like you I'll use my menu metaphor because I feel like that worked pretty well. What you're doing if you only post about your offers once, you're not repeating things, is like, let's say you put up your menu, like the today's specials or something, only one day of the week. And you have some regulars who come in, but they don't come in every day. You only put the menu up one week, and then you don't put the menu up the whole rest of the week. That means the only people who knew about your specials are the people who were in that cafe or in your, theoretical restaurant that day. And all other 6 days, all the people who came in have no idea. They would have gotten the special if they knew about it, but you didn't talk about it. So now they don't get it. They don't get the special of the day. Okay, I'm actually really impressed with myself with that metaphor. I feel like it really fits what I'm trying to say. So you need to be posting your specials every single day. So that way, no matter who comes through your doors, they know about it. And people who would have gotten it or who would have taken up your offer and booked with you know about it and will do so. So repetition, y'all. All right, now to number 5, micro selling. And I think I made this term up. I'm sure it exists somewhere, but what I mean by micro selling is using small moments to talk up your offers and your services, kind of alluding to your offers, but not actually having to post directly about them. I think somewhere along the line, people just stopped posting about their services, about new offers, about stuff. And I don't really know when that happened. I just noticed it started happening. And so I noticed that stories are like the new thing. And I actually think that makes sense. It works because it makes sense if we're going with point number 4 with like repetition. You see a post on your feed once. You don't really go back to it, but you do watch people's stories every day. So the likelihood of someone seeing your post about your offer and swiping every slide and actually reading it and paying attention to all the details that you put together is low. Unfortunately, the attention economy, blah, 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 has made it much harder to capture people's attention that way. So instead of doing the singular feed post or singular reel and trying to jam all the information in that one, hoping that people stay to the end of the video or, slide all the way to the end, you can post about it on your stories every day. And each day you can highlight whatever information you would have put on a different slide. So you have like a 10-slide pitch for your offer that you would have posted back in the day. But now times are changing. You can actually split that into maybe 10 days, so maybe 2 weeks of content, and you can just keep repeating that on repeat, and you can talk about it in different ways. It doesn't have to be like, let me talk about the benefits of my offer. It can be like, oh, I love this new offer, blah, 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 blah. Or I've been working on this new offer for X amount of months. I'm really excited about it. Here's why. And you can pitch it in a way that's a lot more relatable, welcoming. It doesn't feel so weird. And this is a great strategy for my people who kind of hate selling, aka me. I hate feeling like grimy, like car salesman-y, like, here, buy this. And then if you do this, then you'll get this. Like, I just hate the whole weird showmanship of it all. I really just want to find a way to tell my audience that this is what I'm offering. Look at all the great things that I put into it for you, for your benefit. And I really hope that if you're interested, that you learn more about it and then hopefully join or hopefully book with me. And so I just kind of take that exact approach, but with my stories. What would I tell someone casually who's watching my stories? So I just think about if someone's just casually watching my stories, what do they want to hear from me? Probably not this like rehearsed perfect pitch. They probably want to hear about like, what am I excited about? What am I working on? What am I struggling with? What are things that they may not know about me? And so I can use those types of curiosity questions and answer them and include the offer. So like, what am I working on right now? I'm working on a client that has just booked XYZ offer, and this is what we're working on included with the offer. Like, what's a hot take that you've noticed, and what's something that your offer kind of does to address that? What's something that you struggled with for a long time that you've now addressed and you've changed, and your offer has had a big impact in that? So like talking about myself, I restructured the way that I do my client projects. I used to do my branding projects in like 2 or 4 week project timelines. And I realized that I'm just like a way faster designer than I give myself credit for, and I can actually do it in a week. And it allows me to work on one client at a time rather than work at 4 clients at one time. It's the same amount of projects in a month, but it's much easier workload for me. It's way easier for me to book and schedule everything as well. So an idea for like things I could talk about in stories to like micro sell this new offer is I can talk about like, oh my gosh, I am loving the new structure of this. I just finished this client project in 5 days. It's so much more fun than dragging something out over 4 weeks. And it's a genuine emotion that I feel. It's like actually something I feel like my audience would be interested in. And it's personal, like, it's my personal emotion about the new structure, but it is hinting at the benefit of it. And it's low key micro selling. Another example is addressing something that I've struggled with for a long time and then things that I fix. So I could be like, story time, I dropped the ball on one of my clients because I had too many at one time. But that's not a problem anymore because I've restructured everything. So I'm working with one client at one time. They get my full attention. We never have to worry about delays or things falling short. And I feel like my clients are way happier now. People get to learn more about you. They get to see the real ways that you are addressing problems in your business and the fact that problem no longer exists. And also they get to learn about your offer. So micro-selling, it's a great way to build connection, community. It's a great way to go back to point 4 with repetition, but also make sure that your offers are always kind of being talked about in some way. And number 6, my final point, I'll keep it short and sweet because it's kind of self-explanatory. And it's the same point that I talked about in your portfolio episode. Your profile should reflect you. Your profile should reflect you, your style, your strengths. It's like window shopping for clients. It should show off your best work and it should give somebody a 30-second great impression of you and kind of give them a taste of what it might be like to work with you or what your portfolio or the rest of your content might look like. Like I said, attention economy, you really only have like a handful of seconds before someone scrolls away. And so if you get someone's attention and they click on your profile, best case scenario is they like what they see and they're curious and they keep scrolling or they follow you or they click on the link in your bio and work with you or see what you have going on. And in order to do that, you need to give them a little sample of what they might get if they continue engaging with you. And that sample needs to be good. You ever get like a super fire like sample at Costco and you're like, dang, I never would have bought this frozen box of fish sticks had I not been given this piping hot sample, but here I am at checkout with 45 fish sticks in my cart. That's kind of the vibe that we're trying to go for. In this day and age, I feel like your Instagram is basically like your new portfolio. The only way that people are going to get to your portfolio is if your Instagram sample is enticing enough for them to get there. And I think that despite all the advice, people are like, people don't want curated aesthetic things. People want real, they want raw. I don't know. I feel like that's more relevant for like influencer stuff and more like personal brands. We are service providers. People need to know that the things that we're offering are up their alley visually. So what do we need to do? Show them visually what we have to offer. So I still think, even if you call me old school, that having an aesthetic feed, having like a curated, sample of posts to show your clients is important still as designers. I think that it's the best way for us to make sure that people who are interested in us stay interested in us, stick around, that we can nurture and actually take from potential lead to actual client. So I low-key need to take my own advice with this, but I don't know if your Instagram feed is the best place to be experimenting with a new design style or the best place to be putting your rough drafts or work in progress. And I think there's a place for that for sure. And maybe it's in your Reels tab hidden from your feed, or maybe it's in a story highlight or something. But I think that you should probably try and put your best foot forward at all times on your feed and try and show the aesthetic and strength that you have right now. So if you have a specific vibe that your brand is kind of revolving around, make sure that vibe is present and try not to experiment too much and detract from that. Don't lose the plot. And I think that's where the value in having social media templates comes from. I was kind of anti-template for a long time because I was I want to continue to work on my creativity and try and design really unique Instagram posts. But I kind of find myself in a place where I don't really like my feed. It's not really giving what it needs to give. It doesn't really feel super connected to my website, for example. I kind of feel that the content is being obscured by my difficulty, by my desire to have a unique design. And it's kind of hard for people to recognize that a post is mine because all of mine look different day to day. So I am right now in the process of designing some more branded, consistent social media templates, just so that way I have a more curated feed and I'm more recognizable if someone's scrolling. Take my advice as from someone who has kind of not taken this specific tip into consideration, and I'm kind of paying the price for it. I'm now having to kind of rebuild my feed, which is a lot of work and kind of annoying. All right, so those were all of my best Instagram tips that I hope will stand the test of time. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Thank you so much for joining me on the Design Diaries. Make sure to follow us here wherever you get your podcasts. Follow us on Instagram for all the updates, and we'll catch you in the next one. Bye.